Hello and welcome to the Everything Trackside podcast with me, Seán. Joining me tonight to preview the 2026 Formula One season is James. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, mate. Appreciate you having me back. I'm very looking forward to the season. Testing was interesting and I think it's going to be fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to previewing the season and chatting about Formula One again. And I'm very happy it's back, even though it was barely gone.
It really wasn't gone very long. It was something like 48 or 50 days, I think, between the end of season tests and the shakedown in Barcelona. But we still haven't seen it in anger yet. So I'm really excited to see it. We're just over a week out now. So I've been kind of gearing up for this preview one for quite a while. And Annika, welcome to the first proper appearance on the podcast. We had you on a couple of lives earlier in the testing season. It's great to have you on the actual podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's good to be here to finally be in on a proper episode. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about the upcoming season. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think it's going to be an exciting one.
Yes, they won't be short of talking points for this year. That's for sure.
Oh yeah,
there
absolutely.
will be a lot to discuss for 2026. Some good, some bad. If you watch the Sky preview F1 show the other night, they were treading on very thin ice. Careful not to, let's be frank, shit on Formula One. I think they've been, they've towed the line quite well there. But we don't have to do anything of the sort. So whatever opinions you have on the good or bad of Formula One, please do share them. Before we get into the crux of it, we are, of course, still sponsored by Slicks Magazine. Thank you, as always, to Slicks for their continued sponsorship. I have issue 2 right here. Very nearly sold out. If you want your copy, head over to slicksmag.com and use our code ETS10 at checkout for 10% off your order. They are in the production of issue 3 as we speak. Really excited for it. Follow them along on Instagram and TikTok. You'll see some of their updates. They've got some new content coming for issue 3, which will come very soon. But get your copy of issue 2 before it sells out. Slicksmag.com. Use code ETS10 at checkout for 10% off site-wide. Now then, into the fun. We are going to go team by team. In reverse championship order from last year. It's the easiest way to do it. And we will have a bit of a chat about how we think each team is going to go for this season. We won't get into the ins and outs of where we think everybody's going to finish. I think we can all do that in our own socials. I've done that on my own TikTok. If you give a shit what my opinion was on the ranking, hit me up, Seán_ETS on TikTok and Instagram, and give just furious comments of how washed my predictions were. I got a couple of times. I do love people just arguing. It's like, oh, you're so wrong. I know, it's my opinion, so I'm allowed to be wrong. So head over to hit us up on socials and argue with us there. But we will get through kind of how we see each team getting on this season. At the very end, then, we will predict our Constructors Champions for the year, our top 3 in the Drivers' Championship, obviously including our World Champion predictions. And we're each going to give one wild shout for the whole season. And I've seen a couple of them coming through, and some of them are pretty wild. Really wild, actually. A couple more have just come in from some of the team now. So we'll get some of that. If you're joining us live on Twitch, obviously we stream every podcast episode live on Twitch. So if you want to get more involved in the conversation, follow us, Everything Trackside, over on Twitch, and get involved in the chat. And if you're there with us now, thank you very much for joining us, and let us know, obviously, your predictions for the season. But let's get into the fun of it right now. We're going to start with the team that didn't exist last year. We have to start there. It's Cadillac. James, let's chat about Cadillac. Had a surprisingly decent preseason test. We chatted about them a couple of times in our reviews of the primarily the 2 Bahrain tests. They didn't have any major breakdowns, which is a good thing. That Ferrari engine looks pretty good. We kind of all agreed, but you might disagree, that their driver selection was boringly safe, as was their team principal selection. But if boring and safe gets them through this season, then boring and safe was the way to go. What did you make of Cadillac's preseason, and what are you expected to see from them this year? Or what could they reasonably expect to achieve?
I think their preseason went probably as well as they could have hoped it would. I know they had a few, they brought out a few red flags in testing with a few breakdowns, but I think that's relatively standard for a new team, especially. I know in the shakedown they had a few breakdowns, but I think that's to be expected. And actually, they weren't. Obviously, they were in that lower, probably a back marker with another team we'll get to. I'm sure we'll talk about Aston Martin, but I thought they were solid, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. They racked up laps. They were in the conversation about the amount of laps they got there. Obviously, they were down the lower end a bit, but they are completely coming in fresh. So I think it was pretty as good as they could have hoped for, and I think like we said, the driver lineup was boring, but I think it's exactly what they need right now. They don't need to be flashy. I think they just need to get these two drivers to give them as much information, as much experience as possible to build this car. I'm not a huge fan of the livery, but I'm sure we've already spoken about that to death. I think it's as good as they could have been. I think what they're looking for is probably where they are at the moment. If they can get into that midfield, fantastic. But I don't see that starting at the beginning of the season. But we were talking about them potentially being, a couple seconds off the back. It was a worst case scenario at the back end of last season, and they're definitely not that. And also, with preseason testing, we don't know how how much they've turned the engines up. This Ferrari engine looks like it could be a great starter. So they might cause some issues at the start of races, getting ahead of people and holding people up, whatever that looks like. I think it's as good as they could have hoped for. Obviously, I'm sure everyone wishes and dreams they come out and be the fastest car by 2 seconds, but that's unrealistic. But I think it's a great start to the season for them. Build on it, go from there. Let's see what happens by halfway. If they continue to develop to get there, then they'll be great. But I think so far so good.
Yeah. Like I said, you're right. They kind of brought out the standard red flags. Some of them looked like they were deliberately running out of fuel to see where the extent of the fuel tank goes to. Perfectly normal for every team. Pretty sure Lewis Hamilton did that as well. He didn't get out of his car looking too beat up and kicking tires when it ran out of fuel. Perfectly normal thing to do. What do you make of the driver lineup? You kind of both said there it's a little bit of a boring lineup. Who do you think is going to come out on top of in as SOK likes to call it, the battle of the number two drivers?
It really is. I'd give it to Bottas just because he's been within the F1 world so far, but I think they were pretty evenly matched. But honestly, I think it could be either of them. Obviously, that's a bit of a silly thing to say, but I'd imagine Bottas I think he's a better qualifier than Perez, which should help him getting up in the races and to secure those positions. But I must admit, I don't see them troubling the points until at least halfway. Do you know what I mean? So I think they'll be trundling and relatively inconspicuous at the back for a while, I imagine. But I also think Bottas on his day is probably a faster driver than Perez in general. So I'm going to go with Bottas.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that personally. Let's move on then to a team that did exist last year. Alpine obviously finished 10th in the championship last year. Annika, so we'll touch on them. They were rock bottom last in comfortably the worst car on the grid. Pierre Gasly still managed a handful of points, which was impressive. Obviously, Pierre Gasly, Franco Colapinto, same driver lineup. In fact, all of them except for two are the same driver lineups this year, not counting Cadillac because they're a new team. So no major changes there. But what are you expecting from Alpine? Do they look better? Has that Mercedes engine changed them? Or is it still, it's not just the engine that's going to save them kind of thing?
With the Mercedes engine, they are actually putting in some really decent times and some really decent laps. And it seemed like it was more reliable during the testing as well. Yeah, they had their little issues with testing one in Bahrain, but quite quickly within the first couple of days, those seemed to be resolved. And in test two, they were literally just flying. They put in 359 laps in testing two, and Gasly put in 133.421, which was really solid considering everyone else were in the mid 133s, 134s. So I think they're going to be pretty decent midfield car, if not even at the top battling for P5 with Williams this year. If Franco can put in some decent rides as well, then I think they're going to have some really solid chance this year. And also, I'm a little bit biased because their reserve driver is an Estonian, so I'm hoping to see Paul Aaron on the track as well. Yes. Yeah, I'm hoping to see him on the track as well. But I think so far, Pierre absolutely is going to be able to put some decent races in, especially with, he's shown it before when he has a decent car, he can prove result, he can give results. So. Yeah, I think Alpine will be the one to watch in the midfield. I think they're going to give Williams a run for their money, for sure, for P.
Bold prediction. We had a couple of others. We had SOK say last week that he thinks Alpine could be the best of the rest in the early days of the season, at least. I'm kind of hum and haw on Alpine. You'll see my wild prediction later on. It relates to Alpines. SOK has literally just joined in the live stream comments. He goes, Seán, what do you think of Alpine? we're not going to get into that right now. We all know what I think of Alpine. I think at this point, yes, I've had to tone down my predictions, my thoughts on Alpine, and you'll see why in my wild prediction later on. Spoilers. You can probably guess where I'm going to go with that. But no, I do think they'll have a better season as well. I think as well, Gasly, I rate Gasly very high. He's a great driver. I think he deserves a little bit better than an Alpine, but I think an Alpine with a Mercedes engine is about as good as he's going to get for the next while. So I'm still not sold on Colapinto. I hope he has a better year than last year, but we'll see how they go.
Do we think the Alpine uptick is Mercedes engine based, or do you think they've actually built a decent car? I like the philosophy of the rear wing, but do you think it's Mercedes engine that's really given that bump?
It's really, really hard to say, isn't it? We saw in like 2014, obviously the last time we had a big engine regs, we saw the likes of, McLaren obviously led the Constructors' Championship after Australia 2014 with their double podium out of nowhere with their Mercedes engine, and they fell off a cliff. And they swapped to Honda, and it didn't matter. They put the Renault and the Mercedes back in the engine, and it didn't really change anything because the car was still pretty shit. They had to redesign kind of everything. But at the same time, you definitely can't say that they've kind of rested on their laurels. I don't think that, like you said, that DRS, the rear wing opening, is unique. They're the only ones who've done that full flat. Obviously Ferrari's 180 roundy bouty flippy floppy sort of wing is a little bit more unique, but it looks like a tidy car. It looks fairly standard on track, but I think that's a really good compliment to give them, because last year it looked shite everywhere it went. So I mean, like, a Mercedes engine doesn't make the dynamics of the car any better. It doesn't make the suspension better. It doesn't make the aerodynamics better. So I'm hoping that's not the case. What do you think, Annika?
I think it's the combination of both, because I do think that they've built a decent car around the engine based on the regulations. So I think it's the two of them coming together, the engine and the design of the car as well, because I really like their unique rear wing design. So I think they've gone quite, they got the most out of it, and they really put their mind into that design and really designed a decent car, to be honest.
I hope so. Yeah, it looks like a tidy package.
Yeah,
and I genuinely hope they do well. I don't want Renault. I don't want them to do for Renault's sake, because Renault's approach is very much we don't give a shit about Formula One anymore. We couldn't be arsed designing our own engines anymore. Feck F1. I hate that. That's the thing I hate so much about the philosophy of the ownership of that team. Nothing against the people in the team. I'll never complain about the people in the team. They are several hundred people working on that team. They're very good at what they do. They're experts in their field, and they're all trying and fighting to get the best out of the car. Nothing against them, absolutely whatsoever. But I just hate the Renault philosophy of we can't be fucking bothered anymore. And if they go and win with a Mercedes engine, they'll probably come back. They're like Honda. They can't fucking pick one or the other. They'll come back and then they'll start, oh, aren't we great? Look what we did. Like, we took a break and now we're back and we're amazing. I just hate that so much. But I do hope for the men and women in Alpine who've struggled for a couple of years now that the car goes well this year. And they do look like they've done a good job of the design of that car.
With Alpine, do we think a similar thing that happened last season will happen, where they're going to swap drivers in the middle of the season because one of them won't perform?
With Flavio Briatore, I feel anything's possible. And I think Colapinto is on not borrowed time, but he's on a short leash. I don't think quite as short as maybe Jack Doohan last year, because Franco was Briatore's guy. But especially if now the team, I think sometimes drivers could hide in bad cars. Not saying Colapinto did last year, but if Gasly's consistently leading that midfield battle, getting points, and Colapinto is. And then Alpine must think, well, if we want to secure fifth like Williams did early on last year, we need a better driver in that car. And maybe it's time to get Paul Aaron, who's had a great junior career as well. I don't think he's had a worse junior career than Colapinto, for example. So I think, why not? Anything's possible in Formula One, I feel.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really good point. That pressure will come if and when they're fighting. They're not going to be fighting for podiums. It's called spade to spade. But if they're fighting for points, and if it's Gasly up at the point, and again, on my own personal predictions for this season, I said Gasly's going to finish if that car is point scoring quality, it will be Gasly nicking the 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th positions. Not every race, but in and out when it's available, because he's done that before. He was 6th in Silverstone last year. Like, it was a great result. I think Colapinto won't score a single point this year. I think he's going to smash Ollie Behrman's almost record and finish 11th in 8 races in a row, which is worth nothing.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell though, because again, engine versus car versus drivers. I think Alpine are going to be a fascinating topic this for everyone who thinks, oh, it's just the car or the driver doesn't make that much of a difference. And yes, SOK, I know you're watching. I am calling you out for that one. I think Alpine are going to be the test bed this year for how true that is. Let's move on then to Audi. Obviously, they finished 9th last year as Sauber. Kick Sauber Ferrari as they were officially. We have still Nico Hülkenberg and Gabi Bortoleto this year. Interesting lineup. Unlike Cadillac, who've gone for the hyper experience in both cars, Audi planned it last year to have the balance of super experience and a rookie who's now not a rookie, who was quite good last year. James, what can we expect from Audi other than the worst livery on the grid?
It's a stiff competition this year, to be fair, for that title. But I think they're it's an interesting one, Audi, because they're a new team, but they're not a new team. Obviously, they've got the infrastructure, but it's the first time they're building their own engine, building their own gearbox, transmission. So there's definitely aspects that, do we expect them? But actually, I say, do we expect them to do better than last year? But actually, last year they had that up and down. Sometimes they'd be fantastic in the points, and sometimes they'd be last. And I think from preseason testing, they're middle of the road. I'd say they've got that. They had a decent amount of. I think they were about 5th or 6th in the amount of laps they did. Yeah, around Alpine 5.3, 5.7, and then their fastest times are always tricky to really hedge the bets on. We're in that midfield battle as well, 10th and 12th. I think it's a good sign that both drivers are very close to each other. I think their fastest laps separated by about 10th and a half. Because I do think Bortoleto and Hülkenberg are very closely matched, and I'm not surprised that Bortoleto's got that faster time. I feel like he's probably the best driver over one lap, but I think they had lots of nice stuff to build upon from last year. If they can, and again, they've also had some customary, stoppages on track as well. But didn't see. I thought the reliability and testing was actually, well, apart from one team, pretty good. We'll definitely get onto that.
It's not reliability if it never gets out of the garage in the first place, though, is it?
Exactly, true. They just have to keep it under bubble wrap. Do you know what I mean? But I think again, if they can be in that fight with Alpine, see how Haas gets on him in a fantastic test as well. I think I can see them in that. I think they're not a new team, but they've got that transition. If they can nail that, see how the engine performs, then they have that foundation that they just need to identify what went well last year, build upon that, and obviously not with the new philosophy, but do you know what I mean? I think that could be a really good thing. I expect good things from Audi. Again, horrendous livery, but we'll learn to love it.
This is the thing, we've said it a couple of times now, is like Audi as a company, as an organization, and as a motorsport entity, they don't rock up to fill the numbers. Even in a franchise, multi-billion worth every team sort of an era, Audi have not rocked up to fill the numbers. Audi win in every single discipline they ever take part in. They came into rallying, reinvented rallying, and dominated rallying. They went into WEC and World Endurance and Le Mans, and they reinvented it with their diesel engines, and they absolutely dominated in WEC. They've done motocross. Have they done Formula E? They've done everything. They win everywhere they go. They haven't come along to Formula One just to go, yeah, we're in Formula One now, because it's just not how they play ball. I think, exactly as Mairead has just said in the comments there, Audi are going to put their all into it. I completely agree. It's not going to be this year, but I think it's really, really exciting. And I think they're a step ahead of Cadillac already in the fact that they have their own engine. If they're entering with their own engine and they can, did they set the most mileage? No, but and obviously their engine, they're only supplying one team, but in terms of per team mileage, they're bang average. They're exactly in and around a metric with everybody else bar one. And that's exactly what they could have asked for. If they had their engine in multiple cars, they'd have hit similar mileage to Red Bull and Ferrari. So I think it's a really, really good start. I am looking forward to seeing them. And yeah, I think, James, I agree with you. I think Bortoleto over Hülkenberg. I think this might be Hülkenberg's last year in Formula One. I think he's possibly expecting that as well. He wanted to come in and get a bit of a, set the new team up and let's see what happens. He's got his podium now. But again, if they all of a sudden go fighting for podiums this year out of nowhere, then I don't think he's going anywhere. Yeah, I think there's a lot of. I'm really, really looking forward to Audi this year. I just hope that I hope part of the plan for that that awful livery was that they're going to stick some more sponsored graphics on it, because it's just awful. Because the color scheme is great. I think just such a lazy design. Let's move on then to the team who you can absolutely not say did a lazy graphic design on the livery is Haas. Annika, they were kind of the silent stars of the show of testing, really. Obviously, the livery is gorgeous, and there's lots of talk that this is Toyota testing the waters to fully come back into the sport now that there's another American team who are going to steal a lot of the spotlight from Haas going forward. But they set an immense amount of laps over the 3 weeks. They set very competitive lap times. Much like Audi, their drivers were within a margin of each other. Their lap times are very similar. The lap counts are very similar, even accounting for some stoppages here and there. And they look the class of the field, of the Formula 1.5 field. There's nobody out there saying that Haas don't look anything other than a really, really strong outfit this year. What did you make of them? What are you expecting from them this year?
So Haas, it really surprised me doing nearly 800 laps across both of the testing and like mileage wise as well. They actually put in quite a decent mileage with, was it over 6,000 kilometers?
Mhm.
So very impressive with like, especially with Ollie Behrman. Obviously we saw that last season already with Ollie being way ahead of Ocon throughout the season, especially when he really found his groove. But I think they're going to be surprising for us as well. It might even be a three-way battle for the top of the midfield. So so I love their livery. When I first saw it, and because obviously George is my favorite driver, so I saw GR. I sent it to my colleague, and he was like, "Well, they're preparing for George to go in that team," and I was like,
That'd be some great marketing, though, wouldn't it? That'd be some great marketing.
They had
That's what they've
to
got.
get something back, considering their team principal's name is on the Williams.
True.
"That's
very
true."
true.
They had
That's
to get
true,
their own.
that's true.
They had to get their own in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about the team principal, obviously there's a bit of controversy going on about Aya Komatsu saying something about Ocon and him not performing the way he expected him to last year. So that he really needs to perform this year. So we'll see how they do. But I think they're going to be fighting for points for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's. I'm really looking forward to seeing them. I hope we see lots of them because that livery is just spectacular. And I just want to look at it all the time. And I'm really excited to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to see that Haas livery. I'm completely beside it. It was one of the best looking Formula One liveries in years. And on paper, it's so simple, but it just works. It just works.
So let's not forget that this year marks 10 years of Haas joining F1.
Certainly does. Yes, very good call out. SOK, welcome along. SOK, welcome along. Thank you for joining us. I know you had some technical issues there. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Yeah, good to join you. I was listening along on Twitch while I had my issues.
Your timing is really, really good because I've planned this out really, really well. You'll see how this all loops around. We're going to chat about Aston Martin next. They finished, where did they finish last season? Nowhere close to where they're going to finish this season. Were they fifth last year? Yes, I think they were.
No, Williams was
seventh.
fifth.
They finished seventh last year. They will have a job to finish seventh this year, SOK, won't they? What can we even begin to expect from Aston after that Honda-esque preseason?
Not finishing races anyway. I think that's going to be a struggle. What do I expect? To be honest, I'm hoping for an improvement curve of all improvement curves. That we just Jesus. Now, we said this about Alpine. Now, I think Alpine pulled it out of the bag. Was it 2 seasons ago they came out and literally could barely put the car together during testing? And then by race 4, race 5, they had got their act together, trimmed some weight off the car, and they were up and running and they were into the midfield. So I'm kind of hoping that we land somewhere around there. I'm really interested to see how we get on now with, oh my goodness, his name escapes me, but team principal.
Mike Crack.
Adrian Newey.
Adrian Newey,
even.
as an
That's
amazing...
quite a name to forget.
I know, but Adrian Newey, we all know him as this amazing engineer. Now, what can he do as the lead of this team, and where can he bring it with the he gets to set the direction and the tone here. You know what I mean? I would think there would be nobody better to fix a car. This isn't a personnel issue as such, because it's not just Lance Stroll who's struggling in it. It's a 2-time world champion driver who everybody would love to have in their team. Do you know what? I think having someone like Alonso in a shit box is probably the best thing for them, because he's going to be one that's going to be able to give them that instant feedback and just go, yeah, this car is brutal. Now, we've seen that for 2 years already, and the car hasn't improved.
Well, this
maybe
kind
they're
of
focusing on this year, but
This raises a similar question to what we asked about Alpine, was car versus engine versus driver. If and when, let's give them their dues, because they'll do it. They did it eventually. It took them several seasons, but I think they'll get on top of the engine quicker this year, and it will be this year. If and when Honda get on top of the engine, how good is that car? Because it didn't look fantastic. The Honda not being good didn't make that Alpine slip and slide through absolutely every fucking corner in the Bahrain track. How can they get on top of it? And then what difference then is someone like Fernando Alonso going to make when they even has a sniff at it?
Well, there is the argument there that like if that engine is acting up as they're going to corners, dropping gears, going up through the gears, it could very well impact on the handling too. So let's not discount on it all being everything is broken in the world. Now it does look like it is, everything is broken in the world, but let's add a little bit of hope in here. And I did hear you call me out on it, and I'm coming back at you as this is the exact reason why I say that it is not the driver, it is the car that wins the championship. I am sorry, I will die on that hill, but this is the perfect example of it. As we've all said, Fernando Alonso is a phenomenal driver. He's driven across multiple codes. He has shown class and speed everywhere he goes, except for Aston Martin.
Well, they had to run of podiums a couple of years ago.
They did, but I don't know how much that was the Aston, which fell off a cliff by the time we got to the midsummer break. So, yeah, I'm not sure. And even at that time, Lance was scoring well too in that car. So, look, I mean, I wouldn't put it all down to Fernando's brilliance. But yes, you will get measures of performance, but you're not winning a championship driver alone. It is the car.
Fair enough, but we're expecting Aston essentially to, when the Honda engine gets on song, if it does, then the car underneath it is going to get up there and start challenging.
Yeah.
We're agreeing on that?
Exactly.
Now, here's the other thing as well. Like, Jesus, has Adrian Newey come up with an absolute fantastic car that on its own can't drive? But we've heard reports, I think it was Albon, saying these cars are harder to follow in. Well, maybe he's come up with a car that like can actually follow. He has, I mean, do we still have is the rear suspension still attached to the rear wing? Like
it was the last time we went out on track.
So, like, there is some potential absolute genius in the car.
There's also the front suspension attached to almost the cockpit. Like, there's a wild design.
It does look like the most extreme car, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what we expect. That we have that belief and expectation that Adrian Newey has created a phenomenal car. It does. I think Martin Brodder made a good point in the Sky Sports preview show about is there just a misalignment with the correlation between what they're getting in the wind tunnel and what's on the track. This is very new. I think Newey said they're about 4 or 5 months behind. There's a lot of new infrastructure. Is that going to take a little bit of weaning out?
I think that's a really good point, and that's exactly the point that I was about to make. Is they were what, about 4 seconds off the pace, 2 to 4 seconds off the pace. Again, testing doesn't really matter. But if their correlation in their wind tunnel is telling them that they're running at, say, the equivalent of a 132 around Bahrain, that car must be working really fucking well around Bahrain at a 132 engine pace. If the engine is making them 4 seconds a lap slower, Formula One cars don't work at 80% of their capacity. The aerodynamics and all the dynamics don't work at 80% capacity. You have to drive them at 100% capacity to make them work. So there is probably that element of it as well, that yes, the car exists under there, all these wild designs. And in the wind tunnel and on the CFD, they're saying that, well, if the Honda engine fucking worked, this would work really, really well. So But again, on the flip side of that, if Honda come out in next Sunday and that engine absolutely blows us all away, and Lance and Fernando still shank it into a wall because the suspension breaks because it's too thin and too long, different question entirely. It's going to be like McLaren all over again. Jesus, like Fernando Alonso's nightmares this year are going to be hilarious.
Oh, yeah. But saying that, I read somewhere that the Honda engine at the moment is severely underperforming compared to the other engines. Yeah, exactly. And I also saw somewhere, it was yesterday or the day before, that someone from Aston Martin, I think it was one of the drivers, had said that if we didn't have to, based on the agreement, we wouldn't go to Australia. We wouldn't be on the grid.
Oof. Yeah. But here's hoping they are. All of their sponsors certainly will obviously do our preview of the Australian Grand Prix next week, and hopefully they'll be included in that. Let's move on then to Racing Bulls. James, they obviously finished 6th last season. Racing Bulls Honda RBPT, whatever they're called.
Some big old name.
Big old name, stupid name. They dropped the Visa Cash App officially, but it's still there for some reason. Obviously, one of the few teams to change their driver's lineup this year. Liam Lawson promoted to head of the team for whatever that matters in that team. And Arvid Lindblad brought up as a rookie, very young rookie, has already broken a record for the most amount of preseason laps in a single day at Bahrain circuit, which is a weird thing to have achieved before his Formula 1 career begins. What can we expect from Racing Bulls this year? And again, a car that looks gorgeous and seems to drive relatively pliantly, but doesn't exactly have a world-beating driver lineup.
Yeah, I think Lindblad's coming in. You never know; he might be a new Isaac Hadjar and take the sport by storm. But we'll see.
Sock's shaking his head at that one.
I think Racing Bulls have built themselves just a solid, reliable, like a decent car in the last couple of years. You know what I mean? I think like last year, Lucas, it could argue it was more stable than the Red Bull last year. And I think obviously the Ford engine in that, it looks like looks like Ford have got it right. There's those rumors that Red Bull can harvest a lot more energy down the straights. Does that translate over to Racing Bulls as well? And I think at this point of the year, I'm very reluctant to look at the timings because no one's running at full power. No one's wanting to show their true pace. Look at the top 4; they're all constantly saying we're definitely not the quickest. Like, you can't believe anything. You know what I mean? So I think the mileage is fantastic. They were second in the second test. The amount of laps they did. It's great that Lindblad's been able to get out there and do loads of laps. That will give him confidence. So I think, but again, I don't think we can expect. I don't think we can expect them anything higher than 5th ever. Really, with the Racing Bulls, they're here not to be a front running team. They're here to be that sort of second team to Red Bull and be that. But they built a solid program. They built a solid. Do we expect much from Liam Lawson? I think on his day he can put out some nice performances. We saw, some good strategies last year, especially like Brazil and that one stop he made it work, things like that. So we'll see. Again, I feel like we can do as much research and drill down as the times and all this sort of much as we want, but with such a big change, it's going to be an interesting one. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Lindblad outperforms Lawson. I think that could
it could easily. I think we know so little about both of them. It's going to be kind of hard to call one way or the other. One that you mentioned there about like it's designed to be a 5th place team, and it absolutely is. It reminds me literally of a Grand Tour episode a couple of years ago. I think Clarkson was reviewing like a Mercedes, something like that, and he said they will have a GTRS plus Mega Ultra Pro Max version in a couple of years, which means this version is great, but it is designed to not be. They've produced it not as good as it can be. This design, this car, this engine, this gearbox, all this sort of stuff is designed to not be as good as it can be. That's what the Racing Bulls Toro Rosso, whatever it's been called over the years, has always been. They designed that car to be the Red Bull without all the extra bits of the Red Bull, which means it really should be the best of the rest car every fucking year. They put it in an iffy driver lineup, relatively speaking, but like we saw last year, like all 4, whatever it was, drivers who hopped in that car last year did better than the second seat Red Bull because it's a normal car. I think of it almost like it's the show car. It's the car that Formula One and the FIA designed to match these regulations perfectly. Not kind of understand, like there's obviously some design lens in this, but like the engineers in Racing Bulls are not allowed to design it any better because if, and on the odd occasions that it does, beat the Red Bull, that looks really bad for the brand, for the company, for the organization. If the baby team beats the big team, which they've done more often than not in the past couple of years.
And I also think the drivers moving from the smaller team to the big team, that's not unique to just the drivers. We see with Lauren Mackey's going from, they take the young up and coming team principal from Racing Bulls and stick them in the Red Bull. So I'm not surprised if that would happen more often, in the mechanics, things like that. But I think it's a beautiful looking car. I think it'd be really interesting to see what the Ford powertrain does. Well, the Red Bull Ford powertrain. And see if they, if for some reason they've found this particular advantage with the harvesting, and it could really work out for them. But we'll see.
Yep,
I'm very excited. I can't wait.
It's actually an interesting point there, like Ford coming in on the electronics, and we've seen now 3 different engine manufacturers potentially making 3 wildly different ways of doing these engines better than everyone else. Red Bull and Ford seem to have nailed the battery better than anyone else. Ferrari have their tiny turbos, which makes them absolutely lightning fucking quick off the start. SOK is smiling. And we've got Mercedes apparently just doing witchcraft with the compression ratio, which Red Bull have apparently done as well, just not as good as Mercedes. 3 completely different approaches. And then the Audi is just loud. Really, really loud and super high revving. Just make it louder, make it faster. But again, that seems to be working for them. It's reliable as hell. And it's quick in a straight line. So it's fascinating that all of them, except Honda, have come up with different iterations. This is the sort of stuff that fascinates me. And I think a lot of the Drive to Survive era fans are much more in tune with this sort of thing of how can this one tiny little thing make that much of a difference, and explain it in more detail. So I'm looking forward to hearing Crofty and Martin Brundle stumble over their words next Sunday morning. Let's move on then, Annika, to Williams. Obviously finished 5th last year. Same driver lineup as last year, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz. Real good year last year. Albon had a storming first 2/3 of the season, and then Carlos got those 2.5 podiums in the second half of the season. Really, really comfortable 5th position. They were a million miles off Ferrari, but they were comfortably clear of Racing Bulls.
Yeah.
But it's not all been, plain sailing this year. I've been saying, they're overweight. They're only about 4 kilos overweight, it seems. It's not drastic. Yeah, they missed the shakedown, but they did a banker amount of mileage in Bahrain. But again, the car just looks a bit tricky. So is 5th realistic for them again this year? Or are they going to have to fight it that little bit harder to get that?
I think they're going to have to fight a little bit more harder, although with Carlos Sainz having input in developing this car, and we all know that he has a track record of whichever team he goes, the second year when he has a say, it will be better. So I think definitely about 5th, 6th, might even surprise and get a few podiums, maybe even an Albon podium, or even better, both Garbono podium, maybe, even if it's on a sprint. I think they're going to really surprise this year. And yeah, they missed the shakedown. They're a little bit overweight, but I mean, I think with the upgrades and everything, that will be resolved within the first few races. And obviously,
is that enough for them though? 5th or 6th again? Is that enough for them? Surely they should be targeting 4th, 3rd, even, if they really want to take this James Vowsley step on.
Yeah, I think within the team, even though they haven't said it, they're trying to be quite conservative with their hopes and with what they put out there. But I do think internally, even for Carlos and for James and Alex, they're aiming for 3rd. Especially with the design and the engine, it seems really reliable. They did overall, sorry, where is it? So they did an amount of laps. They did 422 in Bahrain 1 and 368 in Bahrain 2 with relatively no issues. I think they had a one stint where they were in the carriage a bit longer when swapping over. But other than that, they were really, the reliability is there. One of the issues last year was that, with Carlos's car, especially in the first half of the season, there were reliability issues, with the end, Carlos's car catching fire and things like that. And so I think they've nailed the reliability. They have a Mercedes engine, which seems to be really good. So I think those two things coming together, it's a long-winded way of saying, but I think they are going to aim for 3rd, but they're not going to say it out loud. Because 5th is not going to be enough for them. Definitely not. Carlos is a go-getter, and we've seen that. Ferrari, when he was in Ferrari, he was very, very good. He was challenging Charles for podiums, things like that. So I think, yeah, definitely, going to be up there, putting their toe into the top 4 fight.
I certainly hope so.
I do think Williams are in trouble, and I've said it before in terms of the development or whatever. But when it comes to their livery, I'm really, really surprised they didn't put sparkles there, and that is the big reason why I think they are not going to do well.
Yep, I completely agree.
They had an opportunity.
Really did. And
you can go
especially
sparkles. Sparkles is you can get sparkles merch now. I mean, why are they not jumping on the back?
They even brought the kid into the factory to meet Carlos.
Yeah, exactly. They could have used that. It was Thea's birthday as well when they did that. So it was her birthday treat. They could have released a new element of delivery with sparkles actually being a big part of delivery.
I hope they do at least put the sticker on Carlos's helmet or on his halo or something like that. I feel like they kind of almost have to. Being super cynical about it. The attention they'll get off that, the social media engagement they'll get off that is worth its weight in fucking gold.
Yeah,
and they need
definitely.
some good news at the moment after a relatively poor preseason and what's probably not going to be a spectacular Australia for them. But yeah, look, we can hope that Williams do better. But I agree, Annika. I think internally they are thinking to themselves, lads, we have to outdo fifth, and we're off to a bad start for that.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed on that.
Yeah. Speaking of livery, do you think they're going to do a special livery for Miami, for example, and have it all sparkles?
Maybe. That would be great.
Yeah.
Like Jeddah or Singapore.
Yeah.
They could replace the Duracell
definitely.
with the unicorn horn.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
There
that
we go.
would be
We're in
It
the
can't
we're in
all
the
be about
wrong
money, you know.
we're
It
in
can't
the,
all
we're
be
in the
about
wrong
money.
job, lads. We're in the wrong job. We
Yeah.
should be Formula One car designers. We'd still do a better job than Audi, wouldn't we? Let's move. Let's move on then. Soxy, I told you I planned this really, really well. To Ferrari. Sock, try and be a little bit unbiased. What could we genuinely expect?
on a podcast
We're not
surrounded
here
by
to be
McLaren
unbiased.
fans? Be unbiased.
This was, I think it's fair to say, a good preseason. The shakedown looked a bit ropey, but then it was a shakedown. It was supposed to. But preseason, the actual tests in Bahrain, they genuinely look good. The car looked a little bit more comfortable. The drivers looked like they were enjoying it a little bit. Lewis was a little bit uncomplimentary at the start of Bahrain, and it was much more complimentary at the end. I think he's just getting a little bit more used to how that power works. Charles obviously said the fastest lap. Not that that matters. I mean, but again, it's a good news story. And they look a little bit more of a serious outfit than they did last year. I think it's probably fair to say. But, you know, are they even going to run that rear wing? Did it work? Did it not work? What can we actually expect from them this year?
It's a hell of a lot better from where we've been the last couple of years in terms of, and it's not just the scoring or the timing or anything like that. It just seems to be they are a much more together outfit. They seem like they've got a bit of innovation about them in terms of obviously the wing, the smaller turbos, the quicker starts, using their Vito for the first time ever, which is unbelievable. So yeah, like they're really kind of coming into this a little bit all guns blazing. Like I know they were kind of saying towards the middle of last year, they're switching their focus up and they're going to put all their focus now into the new regs, etc. But like they haven't been as bullish as the likes of Williams saying, "Oh no, we're going to attack these new regs." Like they completely changed their philosophy on the car last season. So like they were still very heavily invested in the ground effect era of cars. So that made me, as a Ferrari fan, quite nervous as to what kind of car would they be coming up with for this season if they weren't really that focused on it. But it seems like they've...
That does ballet on the main straight.
Yeah, like... Jesus Christ, I'll take it if it means that they're thinking outside the box, because inside the box, it just hasn't been doing that for them of late. Like, I mean, they're too focused on the wine and cheese in the box rather than the actual car. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm apprehensive for Australia in terms of, obviously they have a new aerodynamic car, like, you know what I mean? They haven't tested that either, and that always fills me with a little bit of dread, because for the last 3 years, every time Ferrari brought an upgrade, we went slower. So there is always that element of it too that gives a bit of pause and trepidation. It really seems like as well bringing in the LMP1 engineers has as well. Just and look, I know they're not direct Ferrari employees or anything like that, but even that's a good sign, because I think Ferrari is the downfall of themselves. Like I really had hoped that Lewis was coming into Ferrari, like we saw in the Hunt movie, where you've Niki Lauda going in going, it's a shit box. It's like, it's a Ferrari. It's like, it's still a shit box.
He might have been, but they didn't care as much, did they?
Yeah, exactly. So whereas I'm hoping now that actually you've got a 7-time world champion, that you would listen to him and the feedback that he has and incorporate the years of, and not just Mercedes, what he did in McLaren too, and the various era of car that he has driven. So actually quite hopeful for the season. And it'll be really interesting now to see this season coming. Can Lewis put it up to Charles a bit? Because I think that was And I know that car was suited to Charles. Charles was able to
that era of cars in general it just wasn't suited to Lewis, to be perfectly fair.
No, but
these skitty high rate cars with they're looser on every car, that should suit Lewis's super aggressive driving style so much better.
Yeah, it's shitting. I'm scared now that style of car is the style of car that we saw Charles drive off into barriers in. So it could be really good on the other side of the garage this year and not so great on another. But no, I am really looking forward to it. As I said, it's the innovation and it's more so than the times that they've put up. Because as we all know, like they might have shed a ton of weight that wouldn't stand up to 50-odd, 60-odd laps around an actual F1 circuit if they
or
really
the other way around.
Put that in.
And again, Sky did this, and Matt Davidson did a piece on this in the pre-season F1 show. The extra braces that they needed for that spinny wing, they didn't have the center pylon that lifts and shifts the wing like normal. They had them on the end plates, and they are really heavy, relatively speaking, Formula One terms. They're heavy. They unbalance the wing a little bit because they're on the edge, not smack bang in the middle. So again, they only ran it for 2 laps to affect the installation lap. So but you're right. They're finally showing a little bit of desire, push to do these sorts of things. And as we mentioned last week in the test review, in a cost cap era, even Ferrari can't put something on the car if they don't at least 50-60% think it's going to work this year. They just don't have the legality to go piss that away on a gimmick.
I think only using it for 2 laps was actually a way for then the other teams not be able to really get a good look at it.
Also, yes, probably.
Give it a test and then get it off, and then maybe if they think, it's worked, brilliant, get it off.
Mercedes did the exact same thing with DAS. They only activated it on 2 laps. In that pre-season, was 2020 or 2021. They only activated it for 2 laps. So by the time everyone was complaining about it and thinking, "Oh shit,
kind
we really
of easier
want that,"
to hide DAS.
Yeah,
kind of easier to hide DAS than it is a spinning wing.
I just think that's what Formula One's about. Though. That's what that spinning wing innovation. Let's not hope. Let's hope it doesn't get bad and hope it works. So actually, that's probably the best thing I've seen for a long time. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
and if it makes the car take off, even better as well. Do you know what I mean?
And in the broadcast, there was a huge discussion about it as well, like whether they're gonna just use it on certain races. For certain tracks that it would help for, or they're not going to use it at all, which I think they will definitely use because it would be silly for them not to use it on the track that is suitable for.
100%. And that might be part of the plan as well. Oh, we'll introduce it for 2 laps and then you won't see it again until Monza, but we're going to dominate in Monza. Be a very Ferrari thing to do.
Oh yeah.
Let's move on then to Red Bull. We're getting into the top 3 now. Obviously, they finished 3rd last season, and they would have finished a little bit higher if they had more than one driver. James, they do have more than one driver this year. Isaac Hadjar is expected to do considerably better than everyone who's come before him, really. It's a new era, new team management, no Helmut Marko. What can we expect from Red Bull? I think everyone was relatively impressed with their engines, making them themselves this year. But Ford have nailed the battery, it seems. And obviously they still have Max Verstappen, even though he's really not a fan of this era of cars. What are we thinking for Red Bull this year?
Yeah, well, I think it's more of the same as in the driver dynamics. Obviously they are, Verstappen very much Verstappen focused. I'm not. Obviously, I don't think Hadjar set a particularly fast time in either test. But I think that will just come. We just need to see what happens in Australia for that. I'm not going to pass any judgment there too early. I think we'll see. But also, I also think Red Bull, honestly, probably at this point, don't really need a second driver if they think, let's try and get Verstappen to win the championship each time. But I think if any driver is going to be good, going to get on top of a new driving style, Verstappen's shown, with this other different racing that he does and the way he adapts to new cars and things like that, I imagine he's going to be straight. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins the first race in Australia. It depends. See what I think the top 4 really cut, pick and choose at this point in time. I know there's a standard that think people, there's a standard that think Mercedes are holding back, and actually they've gone through their program very nicely. We'll get to them, but I think for Red Bull, this new powertrain went as well as they possibly could have hoped. It looks quick, it looks on the pace. I think Verstappen's that technique changing all the way down to first gear at the slow corners to help bump the revs up, that harvest the engine. Is that something that's helping with their deployment down the straights? But if that, I know that Mercedes mentioned that 1 second more or however it is, gaining a second more than everyone else down the straights, if that's real, that could be extremely dangerous, especially now with no DRS. That battery deployment becomes really key in defending and overtaking. So I honestly, I think we have to expect Verstappen's going to be, there and thereabouts, challenging for victories pretty much every week, because I think that's just what the guy does. I think for them, let's see what Hadjar does. I expect him to do a better job than Lawson did and Sonoda. But honestly, again, that's another unknown. Who knows what that second Red Bull is going to do? But I expect Red Bull to be up there.
Let's move on then to Mercedes. Annika, the talk of the field, obviously coming into this season, most amount of miles, I think, certainly from an engine point of view. No major reliability issues. The car looks very, very compliant for both drivers. They didn't necessarily do anything special or world-beating, but, they're the ones everyone's predicting. Are you the same? Do you think we will see another era of Mercedes dominance, or is everyone else a little bit closer this time around?
I mean, if you know me, I'm a Mercedes girl through and through. Yeah, they did do most laps and most mileage for a single team as well. They did have a few gremlins with, especially with Kimi Antonelli's sessions, which kept, and some of the days kept him in the carriage for like 3 hours. So he only managed like a very, very short stint on those days. And obviously we saw his car breaking down on Bahrain too. But he still managed to put in some decent laps, having the fastest lap on one of the days as well. Being even faster than George, to be honest. So I think it is going to be quite close to the last regulation changes that Mercedes dominated. That was, correct me if I'm wrong, 2014. Yeah, 2014. But I do think Ferrari and McLaren, they're quite close, probably even Red Bull. So I think it is going to be Mercedes dominance because their engine is good, it's reliable. Obviously they have the most amount of data because they supply 4 different teams with their engine, and they have access to that data as well. I think actually we're going to see a very fascinating fight between George and Max. Because George is predicted to be one of the contenders for the championship. Like, he had an amazing season last year. So I would love to see a championship fight between Max and George, especially considering their history.
I'm sure the tabloids would as well. We need a good ding-dong rivalry again if anyone's going to give it to us. I think if it's like George and Charles, it's just going to be too fucking polite. We need Max in the hunt against anybody just to be the villain, because he plays it better than anyone. SOK,
I don't know.
I think
George and Charles, their relationship's getting a bit spicy. Did you not see their Christmas presents?
That's a joke, though.
Yeah.
But you never know. After a championship season, they might just throw coal bricks at each other. SOK, McLaren. I was impressed at how relatively unbiased you were about Ferrari, so try and do the same for McLaren. Last year they were very comfortable, and the trick for the past couple of years is they were silent as mice in preseason testing and ran away with it the rest of the season. And for better or worse, they've been just as quiet this year. There's been no hyper attention around them. Zach Brown has been muzzled, I think, is probably the best way to put it, relatively speaking. I know your wife was at a talk with them the other day, so you might have a different opinion on that. Take the Zach Brown out of it. What do we expect from McLaren this year? Lando Norris, obviously the reigning world champion. Oscar Piastri lost the chance of it last year, and we said a couple of times that was the one chance to do it, potentially. So do we think they're going to get on top of these regs quickly?
I don't know. I think the one thing that you can take from positive you can take away from testing is their consistency of both drivers and the car performing, like, for both of them pretty much within, well, less than 0.7 of a second anyway. So they were more than 0.7 of a second behind Charles, though, so I will take that. But, I think that the consistency and the equality of where that car is landing in all of the sessions is kind of ominous. I know I've said it before, but I do think that is, when you look at testing, yes, there's glory runs, there's inconsistencies because they're testing different things. You're going to see cars run out of fuel, etc., etc. But sometimes the most ominous things are cars just constantly popping up in P3, P4, P4, P5, but being neck and neck with from both sides of the garage. And I think that's what McLaren have done. Obviously, they have been the most innovative, I believe, for the last couple of years, which obviously with their tire water and flexi wings and everything else that they've been up to. But that shows that there is definitely innovation in. We're coming into a new era of cars. Huge amount to learn, huge amount to tinker with it, and a lot of loopholes to be found yet. So that's something that McLaren seem to have gotten spot on of late. So I'd be surprised if we see McLaren where McLaren were in the Danny Rick period of time, where they were just.
They're not going to fall off that cliff again, are they?
I don't think so. I'd be very surprised to see them drop off a cliff like that again. I can see them probably struggling a little bit in the off, just the fact that they are using a Merc engine. Like they have a supplier for their engine. It's never going to be perfectly tuned to their aero and the car and the weight and the balance and everything that comes with that. So I think it would be very difficult to see them, especially if they can continue to run with this no number one driver bullshit. To really put any kind of challenge in, because I think that they might be thereabouts when it comes to constructors, only because of inconsistencies of other teams, drivers. Like, you've got a young driver in Kimi, you've got a young driver in Hajar, you've got
an old driver in Lewis Hamilton.
But like, you've got Lewis and Charles who don't really have the same kind of driving style. So that Ferrari is going to suit one over the other more probably.
McLaren have the most balanced driver lineup. I think it's probably fair to say.
Yeah, the most balanced, but where they're going to fall down, especially, I would be very surprised if they can be in any form of hunt for drivers this year. But yeah, I think the best that they could look for or hope for is probably another fight in the constructors.
Which I think is fair to say. James, you've got your orange jersey on today, obviously. Are you expecting a repeat from the world champions?
I expect them to be there or thereabouts. I don't think it's not going to be the same season they did last year. I don't think they're going to have that all-dominant car. And I think one thing I take is like, and I'm writing the McLaren season preview for our website as well at the moment, that what I'm going to say is that my feelings are, even if they're there and thereabouts at the start of the season, fantastic. But what we've seen is that every time in the last couple of years, McLaren have put something new in the car, it's got better and it's developed, and that is the confidence I have in the team over maybe the overall performance on day one, which looks like they probably are a slight step behind Mercedes. Again, that top four is so muddled, but I don't see them as the top benchmark at the moment. But I think one confidence I have is that the development that they've proven over the last couple of years has been fantastic. It has been the best in Formula One, and that team stayed around. There's the same team that they built up. So that's something that I think I have the confidence in, that if they don't have to necessarily finish the first race, but I believe they're going to be one of the best teams to beat in the development race.
Let's get into our predictions. What I want from you each is your prediction for Constructors Champion, your top three in the Drivers' Championship, and one wild shout for the season. James, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'll start my wild shout, because I'm very excited to say this, but it'll probably be wild where it's wild for a reason. But I'm going for neither Aston Martin driver finish the season. I think we're all talking about that we expect the Honda, the Mercedes, the Adrian Newey, Aston Martin to get better. But what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? What if it is just an absolute shit show? I think at Alonso, if it's halfway through the season, 2/3. And it's still rubbish, he'll go to McLaren and things, he'll be like, you know what, I've had enough of this, I'm out. And then you never know, Lance Stroll might also feel the same way. He's like, I'm not getting anything out of this anymore, Daddy, I'm going off somewhere else. So my wild prediction is that neither Aston Martin driver finished the season.
Interesting. That is a wild shout. What about your championship prediction?
Yeah, so my championship prediction, I've top three in the drivers. Again, following my Brits Abroad fancy team name, I'm going for Russell first, Hamilton second, and Norris third in the championship. Going for an all Brit number 1, 2, 3. I do think, and then the constructors, I've got Mercedes. I know it's boring, I know it's down the line, but I think Russell's ready. He is 100% ready. If they give him a car that's 0.2 of a second quicker than anyone else, I truly believe he'll get it done. And so I think I have to go for Russell first. And I think at this point, Mercedes do look the favourite. So that's what I have to go with.
Interesting. Annika, can I have your predictions, please?
Yeah, so for the drivers, I think it's going to be Russell first, Max second, and Charles third.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be quite a close call between Merc and Ferrari, but it's going to be Mercedes for constructors. And my wild one is quite similar to you, James. I think it's Alonso's final season, and I think we're going to see some big shakeups in the middle of the season, like during the summer break, kind of similar to what happened with Horner. So it didn't happen during the summer break, but I do think we're going to see, I know you're going to, no, that's not going to happen, but I don't think Fred Vasseur is going to finish the season as the team principal for Ferrari.
Interesting. Didn't even say that yet. He just signed a new contract, so that would be a wild shout. SOK, can I have your predictions for top 3 constructors and a wild shout, please?
So third, Lewis.
Okay.
Second, Max.
Interesting. There's only one of 2 ways you could go here.
Yeah.
I'm just going to type it down now because I know what you're going to say.
First, Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, there we go. I got it right. Let's say that. Constructors champion then. Be a wild shout. It'll be a wild shout on its own if you predicted them in the top 3, both drivers
So
and not
unbiased,
constructors
do you know what I mean?
champion. So unbiased. And what is your wild shout then?
That Lando finishes below 5th in the drivers.
Oh,
You really don't want Lando. Lando finishes 5th or lower than 5th.
5th or lower.
Save yourself a blush there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's read out. I've asked this of the wider team, of the Everything Trackside team. We've got a couple of responses from the team. Coops, who couldn't join us this evening, but will be back next week. His prediction is Lando Norris in 3rd, Lewis Hamilton in 2nd, and George Russell world champion. He thinks Ferrari are going to win the Constructors' Championship.
Yay.
Cadillac will get points before the summer break. I actually think that's quite an easy prediction. I think that's very likely. Larry has predicted Hamilton, Norris, Verstappen, the top 3. Constructors, Ferrari. He says, yes, I know, leave me alone. And his wild shout is Liam Lawson moves to Red Bull before the end of the season. That is a wild shout.
That is a wild shout.
Amy says her top 3 is Norris, Russell, and Leclerc. She says constructors champions Ferrari, and she says in comments,
I'm telling you, Charles,
but she puts in brackets. She put in brackets, yes, really, as well. So the 2 of them think it's a punchline. And her wild shout, and this is going against her top 3. She says Ollie Behrman will be World Drivers' champion, just sneaks out of nowhere. That is wild. That goes beyond wild to delusion. I've saved the last 2 and my own because they're similar, right? Jenny has says her top 3 is Leclerc, Piastri, and Russell. Constructors champion Ferrari. Raid says Max 3rd, Lando 2nd, George champion in 1st. I have also said Lando 3rd, Charles 2nd, George 1st. I think Mercedes is going to be constructors. Mairead thinks Ferrari is going to be constructors.
Earns.
And I've saved this for last because all 3 of us, without context, have all said the same wild shout, which makes it a little bit less wild, that Alex Dunn will replace Franco Colapinto at some point this season. Mairead reckons within 10 races. Jenny and I both say at some point this season, Franco will be dropped for Alex Dunn. So let us know wherever you're listening, following on socials. What are your predictions for the championship this year? Who are your top 3? Who are your constructors? And what is your wild shout? Now, before we finish up, SOK, I believe you have some revenge to take on me.
Anybody who's seen our socials of late has known that Mr. Formula One Encyclopedia himself has decided that he is Mr. Quizmaster, when actually it should be the other way around. Let's put this to the test. So I have two quizzes. So one is for Seán alone, that he has to get. It's a top 10. It's a top 10. You basically have to get everybody in the top 10. So, Seán, you have to give me the top 10 drivers who have the most wins in Formula One that have not won a World Drivers' Championship.
Most wins without a championship. Let's see.
That's a great question.
It's a great question. I'm going to go recent. I am going to say Barrichello.
Yeah, Rubens Barrichello is 5th. with
So I want to jump in on this game.
11 wins.
Fifth with 11 wins.
Fifth with 11 wins. Okay.
Fifth with 11 wins. That's interesting. I'm going to get the one out there. Sterling Moss?
Yeah, Sterling Moss is first with 16 wins.
Okay. Eddie Irvine.
Eddie Irvine is not there.
No, he didn't win
So
that many
strike
races, did he?
number
He only
one.
won like 3 or
Okay.
4, didn't he?
David Coulthard.
Yeah, that was mine.
David Coulthard is there in second with 30.
Okay. Juan Pablo Montoya. Really?
Yep.
How many
Charles
races did
Leclerc.
he win?
Charles Leclerc is 10th with 8 wins, who was also tied with Jackie Ickx and Danny Rick. So I will give you that.
Okay. How recent are we talking for the rest of them?
So one
I think one's
is
quite recent, right?
still a driver. Then you're going back into the 10s and the
Actually, looking at the driver list for this year, frantically scrambling for
Exactly
these
what I-
people.
Google away.
I'm not Googling. I just happen to have the driver lineup open in front of me.
Sure.
That doesn't count as cheating. He's still a driver. Oh, that doesn't mean he's still
Come
a driver
on.
in Formula One, though, does it?
You'll
Yes, he's
kick
still
yourself.
a driver.
You'll
and
kick
he's still
yourself.
on the grid.
Oscar Piastri.
Yes, Oscar Piastri with 9 in.
Well, it's
Okay,
not
so
our
you,
game.
you said 2010s then? Well, I'm going to pull one out of my arse. Is Giancarlo Fisichella on that list? Fuck.
And he
No.
won.
Okay. Is that my last life,
So-
or do I have one more shot?
I'll give you one more shot. So there's a couple there that like you really should be getting. Yeah, there's. Okay, I'll give you a hint. So
Go on.
there's somebody that you really struggled to get, and you've eventually landed on him. So
Hey?
yeah, no, yeah, Oscar.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Just Oscar's your hint.
Mark
Oh,
Webber.
that's a good hint.
Hey.
Mark Webber. That's a good hint.
Mark
That is a
Webber.
good hint. I appreciate that.
So Mark Webber is 8th with also 9 wins.
Oh.
Another hint. Some might say this person should not be on this list because this list is specifically top 10 drivers by driver wins who have not won a World Drivers' Championship.
I don't know if that helps as much as you think it does.
Yeah.
does.
What are you trying to say? They did win a
It
championship.
does.
Is that what you're trying to
So
say?
they did win a championship.
Well, people might argue it.
Felipe Massa.
Hey.
Felipe Massa.
Felipe Massa, 4th with 11 wins, also tied with Rubens Barrichello. So in 3rd place is 12 wins.
Okay.
And then 6th and 7th both have 10 wins. And we're now going back in time here.
Okay. Let me think. Who was good? James, do you want to pull me out of my misery here?
Well, I think you've missed another current driver, haven't you?
Surely not.
Has Valtteri Bottas not won more than 8
No,
races?
he's only won 7 or 8.
Yeah, I think he's.
Interesting. I thought he'd won I thought he'd be on that list.
Also, does he count as a current driver if he hasn't gotten technically back into a competitive session yet?
Bottas?
Bottas has 10 wins.
Bottas has.
Does have
yes.
10 wins.
Yes, he does. I can't believe I missed him. Yeah,
Yep.
that was
There
my
we go.
bad.
See, it's not
So,
that
yes.
easy, is it?
No, it's not. But so with 12 wins, we have an Argentinian.
Reutemann.
Correct.
Oh,
Shout. Jesus. Wow, fair play.
Do you know any Swedes?
Peterson.
Peterson on 10 wins.
Wow.
Blimey.
Good pull, James. Well done.
Thank you.
Right.
And then
Big
finally,
You have beaten me on that.
quiz.
Give us the next quiz then.
so the next quiz then is the top 10 circuits by different winners.
Oh, fucking hell.
Silverstone, British
Silverstone.
Grand Prix.
Yeah,
Is
Silverstone has
second.
Italian Grand Prix
Silverstone is second with 34.
for 34 different winners.
34.
Yeah.
That's the fucking it's second. Jesus.
Italian Grand Prix.
Yes, that is first with 38 different winners.
Wow. I mean, you're looking at the ones that have been there for
Just
the
the
longest. So
classics.
I'm
German
going to say
Grand Prix.
Spa.
Spa has 31
Yeah.
and 4th.
Barcelona.
Nürburgring.
Barcelona or the Nürburgring. Well, or the Nürburgring.
Note Barcelona is not on the top 10.
Jesus.
Barcelona is 12.
Ooh.
Just outside.
Can
Okay.
we get Nürburgring both versions of it?
Was it around for long enough?
I mean, because obviously the new track's also called the Nürburgring. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Is that an actual?
Yeah,
Give me the Nürburgring?
Nürburgring as an answer.
Okay.
No.
No, that is also that is 12. No, that is joint on 17 different winners.
Monaco. Yeah.
Monaco is third with 33 different winners. So you have the top four.
Nice.
Okay. Montreal.
Seán, you are correct with the Canadian Grand Prix.
Nice.
The Circuit Gilles Villeneuve is 8th with 23 different winners.
Okay. So we're looking at mid to high 20s then, if that's almost the baseline. So it needs to have been at least on the calendar for 20 years. Hungaroring's a shout.
Hungaroring is 6th with 26 different winners.
That's a good shout. Would the Red Bull ring be on there, or the A1 ring as it used to be called?
That's a good shout.
10th with 19 different winners.
We've got the baseline then.
Yes, I was just about to say Suzuka.
Can I have Suzuka? Give me Suzuka.
Can you have Suzuka? You can have Suzuka for 7th and 24 wins. So now you are just missing 5th and 9th.
Hockenheim
in 9th with 22 different wins.
Nice.
So you're just missing
just
5th.
Fifth. How many wins is on 5th?
So how many different winners? We've 30 different winners.
It has to be one of the Middle Eastern ones, surely.
No, they haven't been around for 30 years.
Long enough.
They haven't been around long enough.
You're going to kick yourself.
French Grand Prix, maybe Paul Ricard.
No, Paul Ricard wasn't around for long enough. You're going to kick yourself.
It's going to be annoying. It's going to be really annoying because it's going to be one that's been there for ages.
Oh, Sao Paulo.
Correct. Interlagos with 30 different winners.
Well done.
Thank you. That was good fun. That was a very, very good one. Thank you for that. We had some good engagements in the comments there. I promise we didn't cheat. Looking at the comments there.
Blimey, yeah. 32 new messages, blimey.
Thank you, SOK. You can be Quizmaster in the next episode as well.
Yeah, no worries.
That was good. That'll do it for us. Thank you very, very much for joining us. To everyone who's been live with us on Twitch, if you want to get involved in the conversations going forward, we do stream all of our episodes live on Twitch. That has been our preview for the 2026 season. It's very, very close now. We're very excited. I'm really, really looking forward to it. We're only a week away from Australia. If you are getting up at 4 a.m, if you're in the UK and Ireland, good luck. We will have our preview going up just for the race weekend during the week, and we'll have our review just after it. So thank you very, very much to my panel tonight. Thank you, Annika.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, James, for coming back. It's great to have you back.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's great to be back.
And SOK, it's been great having you on. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Cheers, folks.
We have been Everything Trackside. Don't forget to check out our sponsors, SlicksMag. Get your copy of issue 2 right now, slicksmag.com, and use code ETS10 at checkout for 10% off. Issue 3 is coming very, very soon. We've been Everything Trackside. Thank you very much again for joining us. I've been Seán. We'll be back during the week. Bye now.